Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Johanna Kim. I'm the co-chair of KACF's Associate Board. KACF, the Korean American Community Foundation, was founded in 2002 by a group of visionary Korean American leaders and friends in New York who recognized the need to serve the most vulnerable members of our community. For over 20 years, KACF has embodied the idea of philanthropy by and for the community by raising and investing over $14 million in grants. And these funds have supported programs and organizations that meet the critical needs across mental health, healthcare, housing, research, and so much more. One of KACF's greatest strengths is its ability to mobilize community members to engage in the culture of giving. So now deeply rooted in the greater New York City area, KACF is extending its impactful work across the country. Initially, I believe the Associate Board's goal was to help build community, which is partly true. However, I've come to realize that our beautiful, resilient community is already out there. And the true goal of the Associate Board is to really build and facilitate and create spaces like this to bring and gather the community together so that we can connect. And together, we aim to cultivate the next generation of philanthropists and to inspire one another to pay it forward and build an even stronger foundation for the generations to come. Thank you for finding us, and we hope you stay with us for a long time. A heartfelt thank you to the Korea Society for partnering with us to bring this event to life, the AB's Planning Committee, and to KACF staff and board members who fearlessly support and guide us. And now I'll pass it over to Suzanne, our wonderful AB member who will be moderating tonight, and to our inspiring panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie and Johanna, and thank you everyone for joining us today for this exciting panel discussion with some of the most innovative and inspiring entrepreneurs. My name is Suzanne Kim. I'm a member of KACF's Associate Board, and I am so honored to be your moderator for this event. Today, we're so excited to be joined by and to hear from three incredible Korean American entrepreneurs: Melissa Shin Mash, co-founder of Dagne Dover; Eunice Byun, co-founder of Material Kitchen; and Wonny Lee, co-founder of ELOREA. Each of these entrepreneurs have not only built successful businesses, but have integrated a philanthropic mindset into making a significant impact in their communities and beyond. So let's give them a warm welcome. So I am personally a huge fan of all three of your businesses, but let's start with some introductions just to get to know each other and your businesses. Wonny, if you want to start.
Oh, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Wonny. I started ELOREA. It's a Korean American and Korean inspired fragrance brand here in New York with my beautiful wife, who's somewhere here. I can't find her, Sumin. So that's my quicks. That's my quick.
Hi, I'm Eunice Byun. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Material. We launched back in 2018, really inspired by how to bring form and function into the home kitchen. For me, it really kind of came to be, I just had my older daughter, who's now 9, and I'm still in this small New York City apartment and was cleaning it all out before the baby came and realized I still had so much stuff that was left in its boxes from my wedding registry, all the stuff in the kitchen. And I think the light bulb went off of, why is it that most people are buying things for their kitchen when they're getting engaged or married? And why, for someone like a home cook like myself, should there not be better options? And so my co-founder, Dave, and I set out a few years ago to try and change that and really bring high design, high performance back into the kitchen with a modern design overlay.
Nice. I'm Melissa Shin Mash. I am co-founder and CEO of performance bag brand Dagne Dover. For those of you who may not know it, we really try to marry form and function so that your items are organized, whether it's in a baby bag, a work bag, travel bag, gym bag, and now luggage. We have a store in Soho on Lafayette and Prince, right around the corner from ELOREA, which is awesome. And we've been in business for over 11 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So would love to know, your origin stories, how you started your business, where were you, and what were some of the biggest challenges you faced early on? I think I can start with Melissa.
Okay, sure. So yeah, we started the business in 2013, and my background is I used to work for Coach, and so during my time there, in my last role with them, I was turning around their first store in the UK EU. It was at Heathrow Terminal 5. So I was working at the airport, and I was managing a team of international salespeople. And through that experience, I got to speak with customers every day. And they actually had a lot of bag frustrations and problems. They were looking for a way to store their multiple laptops while they were traveling, or multiple phones, or they needed a water bottle that could stand upright in their bag. Their keys would scratch their laptop, and so on. And from my own experiences with bags, as well as hearing over and over again the problems that they had, I was like, I can do this better. This was 2009 at the time, and digitally native brands were starting to emerge. And the idea of taking the best of traditional retail and marrying it with the best technology that was now available so that you could go directly to customers, speak to them, build a relationship with them instead of spending all your money on expensive stores and on expensive wholesale partners really appealed to me. So I really wanted to create something which at the time was for kind of millennial to me type shopper, but more feminine, or at least not so masculine, was really what I and my co-founders wanted to create. And I'd say one of the earliest challenges was definitely raising money and raising the right type of money. Of course, VC money was super flush back then, and that wasn't the type of money we wanted to raise. We didn't want those types of pressures or timelines. So I think finding the right partners and being able to raise money and make sure that you were on a treadmill that you felt like you could keep up with and that you felt was actually going to be an enjoyable journey was really a big problem to unwind and to think about. And I think anyone who's starting a business here, like, that's so much of what you should be thinking about at the beginning is like how you're going to finance it.
Yeah, so I spoke a little bit about maybe the impetus for it, but I always say that's like the investor answer. There's okay, here's the problem, here's how we solved it. I always say there's the other side to it, which was the personal answer of why I even started my own company. And it's because I always wanted to have a company that I felt like was right for someone like me. And I think that's very multi-layered. Korean American, I started my career at Goldman. So for those of you who are in finance, I empathize. I know what it's like to be in your shoes. And I didn't love it. I knew that I wanted to be doing something more creative inherently, more tangible. I love product. I love design. I wanted something I could pick up, look at. The financial markets are very intangible to me. And so I wanted to have something that I knew I could build and something that I could ultimately grow. So there was that component of it. And then there was a component of I was a young mom. And I remember actually I was at a different startup, and the founder actually had the nerve to tell me, he didn't know I was 6 months pregnant at the time. I did not say anything. He's like, people think that moms should get paid less. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is ridiculous, right? So there was this component of, I'd say I have high aspirations and ambitions in my life, but I also had a baby at home, and I was trying to juggle that. And then I think as a Korean American, that's so multifaceted. I'm someone who I always show up, want to work my butt off and do my best. And, there's this whole idea of how do you, I always think about it as I like to take my work seriously, but I don't take myself too seriously. And I think that was a really hard thing for me to wrestle and grapple with in corporate America, because everything is like you live and die by your job. And for me, I was like, no, but I also have things that I love outside of work and things that I'm really passionate about. So I think all those things really culminated into, hey, the only way to do this is to build that space for myself and for others like me who, fill their cup up with things outside of the office, but still really want to do an incredible job in the workforce. So I think that's the personal side of it, and I love being able to share that because I think so many of us probably grapple and wrestle with that in our day-to-day jobs. And how do you find that nice medium between the things you're passionate about and then the job that you actually have?
And I started the business. We officially launched in 2022. And my background has always been in startups, particularly in consumer brands. I started my entire career really when I was a teenager in corporate venture at Samsung Ventures, actually. Um, Focused on like investing in consumer stuff at the time. So I've always kind of been in this space. I ended up leaving Samsung to join a headphone business, starting up their online business from scratch, and that did, thankfully did well. Prior to ELOREA, I was part of a sneaker brand called Greats, started here in New York, in Brooklyn. We ended up selling that business to Steve Madden in 2019. And that was kind of the point where I was really thinking about what was next. And again, my background having just being in that kind of on the opposite side, just tactically, like which category, which area we wanted to focus on. But on the personal side, I wanted to do something that was really meaningful for myself because I'm going to be spending so much time on this. And, it really boiled down to like a couple of different categories that we ultimately fell in love with. And we ended up going with fragrance. And the real like kind of light bulb when it went off was when my wife and I were in Korea, like late 2019. And we were thinking about looking at like all these cool niche brands in Korea. And of course we thought Korea being like the capital of the world for beauty, like there has to be a fragrance brand out here. And at that time, there just wasn't. We went into an Olive Young and everything on that shelf you could have bought right here in New York anyway. And so that was kind of like our idea of like, maybe there's some white space here. Let's take a look at it. And then COVID happened. And actually it was, in my mind, it's like a blessing in disguise looking back at it, because it allowed us to just really take some time to figure out how we wanted to tell a story that was so culturally driven, but also personal. We didn't want to come off as being like K dash something. We didn't feel like that was the right story to tell either. That culmination is what you get today in ELOREA. And really fun fact, our brand doesn't even exist today without KACF indirectly, because one of a really dear young of mine, older brother of mine practically, he's known me since I was 6 years old. And he was the former chairman of KACF. His name is James Won. I called him about this idea and he's like, hold it. I'm going to put you on a Zoom call with a bunch of other people from KACF actually. That's literally how, besides personal finance, that was our first outside finance. And so now it's like intertwined with a bunch of people from KACF. So I will say this idea that like this community is really special and near and dear for me, because I'm living proof that it does work. So really happy about that. Yeah. And actually second one was Chul, who's also a close part of the business as well. He's also an investor, invited me to one of the galas. And I had the pleasure of meeting Mickey Lee for like a hot minute. And through that very brief interaction, she put me in touch with somebody else. And that's actually how we got in touch with the CJ Group investment team. And they were our first institutional investors, literally from that like 2-minute conversation. So pretty wild how it all worked out.
Amazing. I mean, obviously, community is such a huge aspect of everything that we do, and so big in the Korean American community as well. We'll definitely spend some time on that. But something that's interesting to have, like all three of you here, is just the varying businesses that are in front of us, and your launch stories and when you started. So, Melissa, your business started 2013, and then 2018, and then 2022. That's almost 5-year increments in between. I'm sure the business landscape is drastically different, especially for you, Melissa, like over 10 years ago. And I think 2013, I think Instagram was still an actual photo sharing app where you just share your updates. But would love to know what some of those, like what that evolution looked like in business. And Melissa, we can start with you, just from 2013 to even today, some of maybe like the biggest learnings that you've had in this journey.
Yeah, sure. So we started in 2013 really to solve like the sort of feminine-looking work tote problem, because Tumi existed for men, but truly there was nothing feminine and compelling on an organized, work bag front. And so that's where we started. We rolled out with a coated canvas material and then a leather material. And then my partner, Jessie, who is one of my two co-founders, she's our creative director and designer, she was swimming one day in Vietnam near one of the factories that my two partners were visiting. And she was just like appreciating her bathing suit, being like, neoprene's such a cool material. Like it keeps its shape really nicely, but it's insulating and it has all these like performance aspects to it. And she's like, I want to create a collection out of neoprene. And that's really honestly where the brand took off, is because athleisure was happening on the clothing side, but really they were still, women were still carrying their, either very fancy types of bags or something that just didn't look like it completed the outfit. And so that's really where the brand took off. And that was, let's see, about 5 years into the business, 4 or 5 years into the business. And of course, that's been wonderful. And it certainly is our most successful collection. But that's really allowed us to be able to capture a larger audience. Like we never wanted this just to be a feminine looking brand. Neoprene really opened it to be very unisex, very gender neutral, also opened up the baby category. Our diaper bag is one of a top performing baby bag on Babylist and many other retailers too. So that really opened it up for us, and that also lent itself to travel. And that's where we started with our travel bags, our duffels, our backpacks, really leading into the luggage and the suitcases and garment duffels and so on that we just recently launched too. So we've evolved with the customer as their needs have evolved, as their lives have evolved. We just hope that we can be the bag to solve whatever problem that they're facing and keeping them organized for a really compelling price as well.
Yeah, I think, so let's see, when we launched in 2018, it was like the heyday of D2C consumer. So, I mean, you could, put a whisper out there that you were raising and people would be like, oh my God, like, let's talk, right? Very different environment today for those of you that might be fundraising or kind of close to this space. But I think when we first launched, it was so much about how much splash can you make. So it was like, who can get Red Antler to design their brand? And then you kind of like come out with a really splashy launch. And I remember when we started, we're like, oh, and by the way, also, it was all about like, how does the founder, it was still a little bit of girl boss era. So it was like, how does the founder become like this massive influencer? And I remember this is, again, like that push and pull. I think a little bit as a Korean American too, being like, I'm not like comfortable with that. I don't want my whole life out there. I don't want to be that public. And us saying, I remember briefing our first PR agency and saying, we want it to be about like material. We don't want it to be about Eunice and Dave. We don't want to have to be these, I don't like caricatures out there. We really wanted it to be about people's experience with the brand and the product first. And so we kind of went a little bit against the grain and said, let's put all of our effort and energy into product development and into design. So everyone else was like big splashy campaigns. We were like, let's start. We didn't even do any Facebook advertising to begin with. We're like, we want to get product in people's hands. We want them to be our mouthpiece. We don't want to have to kind of, construct this whole campaign. We want it to be as authentic as possible. And I think that has paid off really well, because at the end of the day, for the first 3 years of our business, we did not put anything into paid advertising. It was truly just having other people share about us, having editors talk about us because they received the product, they loved it, they started using it in their own home kitchens. So I'd say that was definitely where we started. And now it's interesting to see where the consumer landscape is. And I'm really curious what Melissa and Wonny think. But now it is truly coming back to like great product, great experience. I think it's coming back also to purpose. Like, what does your brand stand for and how do people connect to it? It's no longer about, oh, we're the Warby Parker of this or we're the Apple of that. Like, it is truly about, you have to deliver something and your community has to know what you stand for and you have to back that up. And so that's refreshing for me as like a founder to be like, thank God we're going back to almost the basics of like why good brands and businesses exist. But that's, I think, the evolution we're in right now. And I think that's why you're going to see a lot of businesses also kind of come and go, because they may not have that strong foundation that like a real business does need.
There's so many good points in everything that you just said. I think being product driven has served us incredibly well and has saved us a lot of money in potential advertising. Same thing, we didn't pay for advertising for the first 2.5 years of our launch. I mean, advertising, digital advertising was still like picking up back then. I think Instagram advertising didn't exist for a little while, but the point is that yes, now we're leaning so much more into the unpaid, really personal touch points with influencers or celebrities or our customers in order to engage them versus relying on Meta, which is not to say that like we became overly reliant, but that was so the MO, right? Everyone was just like, how much, forget about profitability, forget about making money on your first order. And now suddenly it's in vogue again to like focus on profitability and running a sound business.
Yeah, I agree on everything that they've said. It's like tactically the last decade has like really shifted. But now it's always been about the core. Like it's like, do you serve a product or do you develop a product that serves a great group of customers and that can, become your lifelong customers for, whether they buy a bag and then can they buy something else that you offer. It's just, has always kind of been the tactic, but we always kind of deviated from it because we're always searching for that next customer. So there's no innovation within a brand. And so now that it's going back to it, the real brands that have truly focused on their core, like, there's this quote from one of the founders of, I think, Airbnb. It was like, I'd rather have 100 customers that absolutely love my business versus, 10,000 that just kind of like me. And it really resonates because that's how you build something that's truly amazing that people fall in love with. So truly, yeah, that's definitely what's happened. People spent a ton of money over the last 10 years on advertising in particular. And I think that, this is kind of the rebound. We're starting to see some amazing brands kind of survive that wave and really build something really special. So kudos to both of them. They've built something really awesome. So.
No, that's great. And it really is also like the sentiment of, you'd rather have a group of 10 really close friends versus, 45 just acquaintances, and how important that relationship between, brand and consumer and customer is. And as a consumer myself, it is just refreshing to see like how many brands are really sticking to their roots and what matters and what really drives their own purpose. And so philanthropy and giving back is obviously a really important aspect for each of your brands. Can you each talk about how you weave philanthropy into your businesses, and also why it's important to you personally? Whoever wants to start.
Philanthropy for me is more personal than it is business. If I had to pick, there are certain organizations in the community, and particularly in the Korean American community, that I truly love and support. Obviously, I mentioned before, without certain groups, like our business doesn't even exist, quite frankly. But there's some amazing stuff, amazing organizations that I truly love, particularly KCS. If you guys are out here, shout out. I think it's important for us to just stay a little bit, I guess, more in tune with like what you truly believe in, what you want to share. I think like a month ago, we held a private event at our store with a dear friend of mine, actually two dear friends of mine. One runs a nonprofit called Civil Arts, who supports Asian American artists who don't know how to like kind of break through, but they're really, really talented people. And then the second is Yori Chansa, which is headed up by Chef Huni over here in LIC. Is a restaurant called Meju and Little Panchan Shop. And Yori Chansa was always about, he supports a bunch of orphanages in South Korea. And what happens, I'm going to do a very, very quick plug. What happens in Korea is kind of crazy, where once they turn 18, you're given $4,500 and they're like, go survive. And most of them have a hard time for obvious reasons. So what his organization does is he goes to these orphanages with incredibly talented chefs from South Korea, and they cook just for the kids there. And then that turned into, obviously feeding the children, but also they started doing teaching. So they started teaching how to become line cooks. So once they leave the orphanage, they actually have a tangible skill that they can apply to the real world. So for us, it's just aligning our brand, our mission with the right organizations and what truly resonates with me, I want to do. It's kind of the same thing on the opposite side. Like, I'd rather give a lot to smaller organizations where I feel like the impact is going to be greater versus, $100 here and there. That's not going to do much anyway. So So yeah, that's how I personally approach it.
So at Material, we, I'd say, are pretty locked into purpose and profit kind of coming together. And I think there are a couple of ways that we've been able to do it from the very beginning. I think one is we always wrestled early on with Black Friday. There's like something that's just so, yes, we all benefit from the deals, but it's a really commercial period of time. And I think for us, we said, how do we build something with more meaning? So maybe year 2 of the business, we launched a campaign called Kinder Kitchens. And the whole idea was, how do we actually use this time where so many people are coming to our site to find a deal and say, let's highlight an organization or some cause that's bigger than what it is that we're doing on a day-to-day, and let's encourage people to donate with us. So we encouraged people early on to give a portion of their discount. We said, say you're going to save 40% of this. Maybe you can give a portion of that and donate it alongside with us to this organization. And we started small, and we're like, let's pick a couple of organizations we may have connections to. And one of them was Heart of Dinner, and they've done incredible work. For those of you who aren't familiar, during COVID, they were really taking care of the elderly in Asian neighborhoods, providing them culturally relevant ingredients, packaging them up, but also sending them notes in their loneliness where they could feel connected to people. And so, we just started finding ways to give back in really critical moments for us as a company. And really, really pleased to say that, in the 6 years we've been around, we've been able to donate over $130,000 directly to different organizations. And then we said, how can we take that to the next step? And so for us, it was talking to some of the nonprofit organization leaders and finding out their biggest thing is they don't know when the checks are coming, right? They're going to come maybe all in one season, and then the rest of the year, they're trying to go around and figure out who can cut a check. And so for us, we said, well, why don't we have a product where we give you, and it's an everyday product, and we give you a portion of the proceeds. And so we talked about, could you build that into your operating budget? How does that help you? What can it actually, meaningfully do for your budget? So we just started asking questions and listening to the responses to figure out, how can we best serve the needs of our partner organizations, as opposed to saying, hey, we're going to do a campaign and this is how we want you guys to get involved. We said, let's flip it on its side and just say, what do you need? How can we help? And what we found is so many of them would have a lot of ideas that we could actually operationalize. And so through that, we've been able to partner with Heart of Dinner, Apex for Youth. Last year, they were Kinder Kitchens partner organization. So we created a colorway of our glassware, and I think actually we gave 50% of the profits directly to Apex. We've partnered with Star Route Farm, which is a culturally relevant farm upstate, and they actually donate a lot of their produce back to organizations as well. So for us, we try and find kind of everyday 365 days of the year type of activations that we can do, and then we try and build longevity into those partnerships. So it's not just a one-off, but it's something where we can really get to know the team and really understand what their needs are over a longer period of time.
That's really cool. So as I mentioned, I have 2 other co-founders, and we are very passionate about a number of topics and a number of organizations. And so for us, in order to feel authentic to ourselves, we really haven't attach ourselves to one type or one organization. Our bags in particular, and our team is so diverse, but our bags also serve such different purposes that for us, it was really important that we give back in 3 ways. One, through our time, through mentorship. Second, through money. And the third is through our products, given that so many of our products can help, whether it's new parents who are struggling, whether it's people who are getting off their feet and need clothes to go back to work and need accessories to feel prepared and confident, or otherwise. So throughout the year, we give back to about 100 organizations, many different types of groups. But something that, sort of framed how we give back and really impacted that was that during COVID, obviously impacted people in such a major way. And we were just so grateful that people were shopping and keeping our business alive at a time when people weren't leaving the house and going anywhere. We made bags for people on the go, that we decided to start a coalition called Brands for Better. And it was with Rhone, which you may know is an athleisure brand. And we said, let's join forces and create a way for digitally native brands to be able to commit that they're going to provide a portion of proceeds while we're going through this for anyone who's shopping on their sites. And together, through I think it ended up being like 200 plus digitally native brands, we raised over $4 million to give back to different organizations that every company chose who they were giving to. Some gave to one, some gave to several. For us, it was very important that we give to several because, again, COVID time has impacted people in such different ways. And that really kicked off how we give ever since 2020. And at checkout on our site, you can always see that there's a number of organizations that you can select from. What is passionate to you, what is important to you, and your purchase will go and support them. So that really kicked it off, but we do a ton of giving around things that are going on throughout the year. Certainly Oppie Heritage Month, we often partner with Stop Oppie Hate to bring attention to obviously important issues within the greater Asian community, and not just pretending like, hey, it's all wonderful, we want to celebrate Oppie Heritage accomplishments. Like, it's also about talking about the hard things too. So that's what we do.
Fantastic. So, all of you have such a personal roots in philanthropy. Is there anyone or anything that inspires you in the philanthropic space? Like, are there any role models or experiences from your own lives that have shaped your approach to giving back?
I mean, I guess I can just speak that, like, as a team, we're acutely aware of the very privileged work that we get to do, that we get to design, make, and sell bags. And so for us to acknowledge that and about to give back to our communities, for example, we have a Heroes program where anyone who's a healthcare worker, a veteran, or a teacher gets 20% off year round on our site if they just register their work email address to know that we can check it. But otherwise, we just want to acknowledge the important work that's happening in our communities and be able to support them so that they feel confident and prepared for the great work that they do.
Yeah, I could probably point to two people who I know who are in the audience. So my sister, Christine, and Hannah Asbrink, a friend. I think the reason I highlight the two of them is together we created a small group called Punch and Box Party, and this was like during the middle of COVID, and we were trying to figure out what we can do. Dan On was also helping there, I see, as well. Jennifer back there as well. So many people who are part of it, and I think for me it's our community, right? It's the fact that like people have jobs, I mean, incredible things that they're doing, and yet finding time to give back to our community, and just knowing that it doesn't always have to be these grandiose, like big efforts. I think that's what I'm always so encouraged by, is like grassroots mobilization of just figuring out how do we utilize the privilege that you mentioned that we have and give back to community. And for me, I can already just look out into this room and point to people who I know do that regularly and aren't thinking about the splashy nature of it, but really doing it because it matters, and it's again community building at the same time too. Like, I've gotten to know so many people through more of the grassroots effort. So for me, those are my like everyday heroes, because people are doing it on the day to day.
Yeah, probably going to reiterate a bunch of stuff I've already said, so I'll keep it short. But a couple of really close mentors of mine just happen to be part of the KACF group. And I think what's important about those individuals is, or at least what I can say is, just to be able to listen really carefully about what they're saying, because I think a lot of times we tend to gloss over or try to think about perspectives from our perspectives, and that's important. But I feel like the experience does matter in this scenario, and taking a step back and listening to what they would like to change about the next 10 years as well is going to be a good dialogue to have, especially with individuals like in this room right now who probably deal a lot with senior people, and you kind of in your position now, because we are all going to grow up at some point. And I think it's incredibly important to just listen and hear their thoughts and make it your own, and then try to adapt in that way, because that's where progress will happen. So yeah, tons of mentors, too many to count, a lot of inspiration everywhere. But I think at the end of the day, it's always been that everyone has that little strand of like, what, after your work is done, kind of like what happens next, like where are you going to dedicate your time, your money, your efforts. And the people who do that just tend to be a lot more colorful, interesting, and those are the people I gravitate towards. So they're everywhere. So I encourage people to meet everyone and see who they are, and just learn.
Thank you. Punch and Box Party was so cool. It sold out so quickly. We have to do that again if we can.
I know.
Seriously.
I'm looking at like 4 people back there. I'm
Yeah,
like, all
we
right,
have to
let's
do it
guys.
again. But speaking of community and just like looking at all your business models, the importance of having a good partner, in developing your brand and running your business. Can you speak a little bit about, that, like how critical that is and some of the qualities you look for in, identifying business partner or partners, and, the ways that you complement each other, what you bring to the table? Whoever wants to start.
You're married to
Yeah.
yours.
It's great. No, but I've had the pleasure of working with a ton of different co-founders, a lot of different businesses, and it is honestly the toughest thing you'll go through. And I say that because something will always go wrong. It's just the nature of our business, or any business really. You only read about successes most of the time, and you don't know about all the different troubles, the negative bank accounts, and like how are we gonna like pay our staff next week? That never gets written because that doesn't really, get a lot of views. But I'd say the best co-founders and the best founders I've truly met, like throughout, they're the ones who almost understand that bad will happen, but have an ability to kind of, in a weird way, compartmentalize and adapt and address problems. And the best co-founders or the best teams are the ones that understand that that's going to happen too, but be able to communicate clearly with each other, knowing full well that, you're going to do your best work when things are really, really hard. Because when things are going well, there's nothing really to worry about, right? There's no tactics. There's nothing you're really learning truly. But when things hit the fan, that's when you truly understand, true personalities, and that's when a lot of co-founders break off because they're not able to kind of communicate those issues together and work through problems. And so, fundamentally, that's like the one quality I look for in terms of co-founders. Like, truly, when things are bad, what's happening? Like, how are we deviating? Like, problem solving these issues, all these things. So yeah, for me, it's that.
I think mine, so I have a co-founder, his name is Dave, known him for 20 years. And I think what I'm realizing, and I totally agree that you hear about co-founder like breakups and they happen more often than not. And so finding those great relationships, I think, are kind of few and far between. And for me, I think what I've distilled it down to is shared values. Like, you have to ultimately believe in doing business the same way. Because if you don't, that's where the fractures and the fissures start to happen. So, how do you want to treat people? How do you treat your team? Like, how do you act when the going gets tough, right? Do you have a tendency to blame, or do you say, hey, let's take ownership of this together? So I think kind of really understanding, do you see the world similarly enough when it comes to those tough moments, and do you have those shared values? I think that's where people thrive, because you're at least able to always go back to what do you believe in and who are you as a core team.
Yeah, I think team mentality is really important, and certainly not adversarial. And like, in a situation where there are 3 of us, it's easy to triangulate, right? It's easy to have like 2 people who oppose and one person who's like, calling out who they side with. You can't have that. That's a sign of dysfunction, So I think that there's respect, there's how you communicate, how open people are to feedback, and how willing people are to say, like, okay, like, I didn't have the best idea, or I was wrong, or, you're right. Like, these are hard things that sometimes people can't say. And if they can't say that, then that's kind of an indication that it's going to be a tough relationship. On top of that, just like complementary skills, I think is really helpful. It gets you really far. My co-founders and I think we made it like maybe 2.5 years of not having to hire anyone, just with our own skill set. And that was really helpful in terms of fundraising and showing proof of concept before we did that. So I think the personalities, and again, as you said, like the values are really important, but there's also a very clear story, especially if you're raising money, about like who each person is and why the backgrounds, and second of all, the alchemy of all you coming together are going to make a winning team too.
Love that. It's like a marriage.
Yeah.
For you, it's literally marriage. I love that. But so I'm sure there are future entrepreneurs all over in this room with us right now. What advice would you give to someone who wants to take that plunge and start their business, and especially in weaving in philanthropy as part of their mission?
Wait, okay. I had it literally went in my head and then it went out. I don't know why. Ask the question again. Or you go ahead.
Any advice you would
advice.
give to future entrepreneurs in this room, with an add layer, if you want to add on weaving in philanthropy into their business models?
I remember my thought. I would say, again, I am a community. Like, you have to have a support system, right? And I think, and I'm curious if you guys are similar, like, there are a couple of founders that are of the similar, like, vintage year. So we go through similar things that I trust. And I know if I can just call, I always joke, it's like a bat signal. I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know. It's the first time we dealt with X. Like, fill in the blank, how did you guys deal with it? I think having a support system, because guys, it is so hard. Like, people don't talk about enough. The mental health struggles as a founder, like, they are real. It can be lonely. It can be really isolating. There can be so many ups and downs. I always say you'll experience the coolest thing ever in the same day that you experience the worst failure. And you're like, how did that all happen in one sliver of time? So for me, it's like, you got to have a support system. You've got to surround yourself with people who understand what it's like to be in your shoes, who you can talk really openly and freely with, and where there's just no judgment, because it is not spoken about enough how, like, mentally arduous, and you need a lot of fortitude if you're going to go out there and build a business.
There's so many things. First of all, I think that all of us have co-founders. Yeah. I cannot imagine doing this as a solo founder. I don't think I would have lasted 5 years, and the fact that there are three of us and we're able to divide and conquer, and things happen in life too, right? Parents get sick, people have babies, people need to take a vacation. You need to be able to turn off. And so much to what Eunice is saying about mental health, it's so important that you have a support system, of course, outside of your founder team as well, but within your founder team, that you've got each other's back. And I truly, we're at 11 years, and we're, this is just the beginning for us, honestly. That could definitely not happen if we were solo founders. So I think the founding team is really important. The composition, how much you can trust each other, how much you can lean on each other, is really important. And also just the idea of, like, I think people think that they have to have some, like, $1 billion idea. There's a lot of space between, like, a simple Etsy shop and a $1 billion idea. You just have to start with something. You have to learn about your customer. You have to learn about how you're going to refine your product, learn about pricing. There's so many things to figure out. And I think people can sometimes get stuck on, like, I'm not the ideas person. Like, what am I going to do? It's like, you can find someone who is the ideas person. You're probably more of an ops person. So meet people, figure out what role you can play within a founding team, and just try and see where it takes you.
I hate the word entrepreneurship, because it almost by definition, it's like you're kind of on an island, almost, like, and I hate it because it's totally not true. Being an entrepreneur is more about finding your tribe, your people, because I can't tell you how many founder dinners we have where it's like, we almost don't talk about work. It's more like therapy sessions for each other. And we all get it, because we intuitively know, like, how hard it is for each other. And it is so true that, like, when you start something technically on your own, or you're going to start your own business, I feel like it's a very big disservice to think about it like as if you're going to do it yourself, because you're truly not. Every single business that I've been a part of, whether they succeeded or failed, we did it with a ton of people around us. And I have a lot of great memories, a lot of great experiences, but those are the ones that really stand out in my mind. And then, secondarily, like, when you think about starting something, I always try, like, everyone talks about this idea of, like, product market fit. and actually, like, there's always a third one, there's, or rather second one, where it's like, sometimes the product market doesn't really need to fit, but you need to create something that people want or are desired, or like a desired need, so to speak. And so for those founders who are very creative, like those typically that generally happens, those who are very creative and they want to start something, my advice would always just be to start right away, or I would just begin, and figure out if this is something that resonates with people, because generally that's how businesses start. It starts with like one customer being like, I really love this, or a friend being like, I really, really love this. All those steps in between, like the iterations, the product building, all that stuff, nobody talks about that. Everybody talks about their first check and then like, now my business started. At that conversation, when you're trying to raise money, you should have already built something that a few people actually love, and you've got something out there because you've proven, at least to a certain extent, that like this can be something more people can enjoy. So just go after it in that regard, but understand that this is a team sport. So there's a lot of people here and a lot of free advice out there, and very smart people, very, very giving people that will give their time. And I'd say go out there and listen and learn, and just start breaking things. Yeah.
So much to take away. Thank you. And in the spirit of bringing your time and advice, we'll open up the floor to any questions from the audience. If anybody has anything they want to ask our founders.
Hi, guys. Thank you for your time. My name's Eric Lim. Bouncing off that question, what advice, I'm 24, but I'm going to go a little younger. What advice would you give your 21-year-old self today? Not entrepreneurial based, just in general.
Should have saved more money. That's a great question. Because I started and I think you did it well as well, Eunice, but like corporate, I started in the corporate world. You as well, Coach. Yeah, it's a big company. A part of me always, like, the experiences that I had there, the structure, the mentors, even the managers and executives, like, I actually still remember all of those things today, whether I liked it or not. It's experiences that I genuinely value, and I'll never forget it, because the executive who was heading up like the venture team at the time at Samsung, there's a lot that was said, but there's one thing I'll never forget, which was, money, comes and goes, but your reputation is everything. You don't have another job after this without a good reputation. You can't raise money if you don't have a good reputation. So reputation is built, and it can be quickly lost. So that is the most valuable asset you have throughout your entire career. So yeah, that's one thing I would say. Yeah, if I can.
I think I'm going to go the other way.
Yeah.
Only because, again, I like Korean American to me. I like worked my butt off, right? Like right around that time. I wish I just traveled more, like just took the vacation, because at the end of the day, like, I always think about it now. I didn't have kids then. I wasn't, I just wish I opened myself up to enjoying life a little bit more and actually not taking myself so seriously, because I feel like I thought, oh my God, this is like my future. I'm not even doing anything close to what I was doing when I was 20, right? So yes, there were some great lessons I learned about, work ethic and things like that. But I'm saying this to a room full of like a lot of, I'm sure, high achieving individuals. Like, I just wish I had enjoyed life, right? Like done fun things, figured out what those hobbies were, and just live a little.
I think to Eunice's point,
Sorry, I sounded so old by the way saying that.
But I think to your point, it's like so much in my career, I've seen people struggle when they didn't take the time to like pursue things that they were interested in, or go on the trip, or take up that hobby. And then you end up in sort of like your late 20s or beyond, and you kind of feel like, who am I? Like, I don't know who I am besides work or achievement. And that's a really big problem. That's a really big problem. So I think that you still have the ability to impact that in your early 20s, of course, any time in your life, but it does get harder when you get very stuck into who you are. What I was going to say, aside from that, was that I feel like we're taught to be individual achievers in our 20s, to stand out and to, again, differentiate ourselves from the pack. But really, entrepreneurship in particular, and honestly, life is all about how to be a good leader. And a leader is someone who brings the team together and can piece together the talent and who can communicate and figure out different communication styles and how to get the results that you want. And so I think that there has been this disconnect where in your 20s, you're programmed to be a certain way, but then you enter your 30s and you're suddenly in managerial roles, or you're starting a company and you're like, oh, actually those skills are totally almost untransferable to what I need to be and who I need to be for my team now.
That's a good point.
Hi, thank you so much. My name's Leah Chung. So this is coming from someone who did start a company and then had to shut it down within a year. Just curious if you've ever experienced in your journeys a moment of, do I stop? Do I continue? And what that was like. I would love to hear about that.
I didn't have that, but I did have scares that were like, holy shit, what are we going to do? Like, how do we get out of this massive issue? And I'll tell you, so pretty early on, like 2 years into the business, our factory, who at the time worked with again, we don't work at this factory, but they worked with very reputable brands, but they were suffering because the overall handbag market wasn't doing well. We were just a small, portion of their business. So even though they were deeply impacted, and they said, hey, we're not going to be able to ship you your order unless you pay us $300K, even though those weren't our terms. Our terms were whatever, 30% down or something at the time. So we needed to come up with $300K, which we obviously didn't have because we're a small company at that point. So I literally called up one of our investors who's just like a good guy, who's someone who like, you just know that if anyone's going to give you $300K to borrow for 18 months, it might be Jim. And I call him our number one rando because he's also the first random person who wasn't friends or family who just like invested in us. And it may have been a small check, but the point is when someone random is willing to give you $25K, it means so much, and you're never going to forget them. And so I called him up again, and I told him the situation, and he ended up giving us very favorable terms to borrow $300K when we easily could have gone under just from that situation. So I think, Suzanne, I think you maybe mentioned about like the people that you surround yourself with in the community. It's so important that you have good people on your side, whether it's service providers, whether it's lenders, whether it's, your investors, of course, your friends and family and your network, to make sure that you can complain to them and sort of, make sure that they can help you on this journey that can be very lonely. So he saved the day. Jim saved the day.
I mean, yes, I feel like every day there's this moment of, and I definitely want to hear more about your experience too. But I think what you realize quickly as a founder, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is that you're just trying to get to like the next lily pad, right? Like everyone thinks that you're going through this crazy journey, but all I'm trying to do is get from like this place to that place, right? And sometimes that short distance is actually really hard. And again, like I think one of the things people don't talk about, I was talking about it with some founder friends this week, is the loss of identity also when you have to shut down a business. Like that is a real thing because you're so intertwined with it, and so much of who you are gets poured into the company that you have. And so yeah, I mean, I think it is that it goes back to the scaries of being a founder, and especially when you're thinking about your team and how do you really make sure that you're always covering them, and there's just a lot of struggles and burdens that you have to endure as a founder, and I don't think it ever goes away. I actually think it gets harder and harder as you go through it because you have almost more to lose and you have more people relying on you. So yeah, I think that fear is always is always, you have to confront that fear daily, I would say.
Ditto. Yeah.
There's a mic coming for you.
Hi, my name is Sienna. I kind of just recently took the dive into starting a consumer venture of my own, so scary but exciting time. So I have a lot of questions, but you guys have all kind of shared both wonderful and some of the potentially risky sides of weaving the personal and the professional together, which you inherently have to do as a founder, whether it's staying connected to your roots or your values. But I'm wondering if you also have advice for making sure that you stay a healthy balance of maintaining some sense of self and your personal life that can also exist separate from your business, even if your business is so much of your life.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a great question too. I'm gonna just quote my dad literally, because he's seen me go through a bunch of different companies, and the advice is always this. He never tells me what to do, except just make sure you exercise and take care of your health. And that's all and he had his own company too. And it's so weird like saying that right now because like I feel like a conde, but it is true. I think, but the moments I do take time away and like maybe it's just going for a jog or playing tennis or whatever it is, staying literally just disconnecting from my phone. Those few moments right there, the second I get back to it, you get this weird clarity. And this routine, I think, has helped me a lot throughout my years. And of course, having good health and eating well and all that stuff is really important because I can't tell you how many times I burnt out. And it's been really bad. So yeah, it's a weird and so simple, but that advice, it sticks with me and it really resonates with me. So yeah, you're gonna do what you're gonna do. Just take care of your health. Yeah.
I think someone said the word earlier today, just also compartmentalize. Like you kind of have to. And I think for me in my life, the easiest is I have 2 kids. So the second I walk in the door, they're not like, how is that investor meeting? Like they have no idea. They're like, mommy, So I think just finding that space where you actually can be who you are outside of the office is so important. And it's having friends who really don't care to talk to you and ask you the questions about the business stuff. And I think being really intentional about how you schedule your time. I say no to a lot of things because I'm like, I don't have the time or energy. Like I want to go home and just watch a really bad TV show because for me, it just gives me a minute to like decompress. So I think figuring out what those things are and creating that space and being really, really protective of it and just being like, nope, this is mine and you're not going to get access to it. I think that's really critical to kind of stay mentally healthy through it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing else to add.
I think we have someone in the back.
Hi, my name is Yongmun. Thanks for sharing your journey. So I have a question about team building, because you guys mentioned about starting, with your co-founders, and then at a certain point, I'm sure you guys hit a threshold where, okay, I can't do everything on my own. I need to make a hire. I need to grow my team. So I was wondering, what are some things that you guys have implemented to build a strong team?
One example of a very simple thing is that my co-founders and I meet every week. And of course, we're going to talk about our employees and things that are going on, but also the first probably 30 minutes is talking about ourselves and what's going on in our lives. Because there's no way that we can do good work if we don't feel seen, if we don't feel understood, if people don't know the lens in which I'm approaching the situation or coming in hot, like what sort of energy is happening in my life and how is that going to impact, what we're working on too. So I think making space for those personal relationships, because so much of the time your relationships as co-founders is dictated by how well you are connected with them. So carving out that space, I'd say, is one thing that we've always done.
Yeah, I think for us, a lot of it is understanding like what do you want to do here, right? Beyond the job itself, like what is your vision? What are you hoping to get out of it? And I think we're a small team. I mean, we're a team of 8, and we've only turned over one person who left for business school, and we happily wrote her recommendation. So I think we've had a really good track record of being a small team that has retained its team, because it's come down to like, what experience are you looking, what are you trying to learn here? And then trying to find ways to map what their job is to the opportunity that they want. And sometimes it's like a side project that they can work on. I think it's, again, goes back to creating like purpose and meaning in the day-to-day. And being really open and honest with people. Like I think that's how our team has been so strong. It's it's more motivated by the individual than necessarily just the job description, and allowing people the ability to like morph their roles over time.
This is a very great. People problems are like my number one. Like this is what keeps me up at night all the time, and it's the hardest part of I think our job, my job. So I guess in two parts. The first one is like bringing on a team and what do you look for like in qualities and all that. Like there's this like one thing I learned, which was like hire incredibly slowly, but make sure if you know it's not the right person, fire really quickly. I think that's incredible. Like it's especially for small teams, especially in the stage of like $0 to $10 million. Like that's a really small team. You know, you have to figure out who the pillars are in the business. Everyone's going to do a little bit of everything, and everyone's going to have a specialty. But you have to take your time to make sure that person is like truly the right person for the role. So hiring slowly, taking the extra week to like get to know this person, both professionally, personally, I think is incredibly valuable. So hire very slowly, but if they are very toxic, and you can learn about these people very, very quickly, you know it's not the right fit. Sooner than later, you want to get rid of that person as well, because that toxicity does travel throughout the team, and it can truly, make a team, cause a company to fail, especially that early. And then the second part to it, which is like strange enough, like at least from my experience, I don't think I've ever truly experienced rapid growth. Actually, I'll take that. Trajectories, I feel like, are the most significant after I bring on someone. It's always happened to me that way. Like, it's never really been a product thing or like this moment in time, like this viral moment. People change businesses, and people change trajectories of businesses. And you don't, and it's hard as a CEO or even a founder where you're looking at your budgets and how can I afford this person? That's probably the number one thought everyone goes through. But part of being an incredible CEO and the best CEOs ever met, they have this innate ability to attract talent, and they're really the best recruiters on the planet. And it doesn't almost matter, like the money, like we'll figure out. But can you convince this other person to take this journey with you? And they are incredibly talented as well. That's the true power. Like that's a superpower. There's also that flip side to it. It's like the sooner you find someone that's, you don't even know how they're going to fit, but they're special. Sometimes like you just got to bring them on sooner than later, and you can see the benefits of your business be impacted truly. So yeah, those are, I guess in two parts, that's how I view it. Yeah.
Well, so many great questions. Thank you, everyone who have incorporated a question for our founders today. Speaking of rapid, we'll close on just a fun note, rapid fire Q&A. First thing that comes into your mind. Favorite food?
Naengmyeon.
Oh,
ooh, that's good.
Me too.
It's just hot. Like,
yeah,
it's really pho actually, but sorry.
Mine is also naengmyeon from Ole. If you haven't gone, yum, delicious.
Kimchi ramen. Yes.
Yum. Last thing you read or watched? Last thing you consumed?
I just read The Island of the Sea Women. Do people know it? Yeah. So good.
Okay, again, my brainless TV. I started watching Girls 5 Eva.
I've heard
so
it's
good if you haven't watched it.
I don't know the name of the show. It's with the woman from Parasite, like day and night. That she changes from like a young woman to an older woman. It's on Netflix. Night and Day.
Night and Day.
Yeah.
All right.
One item you can't live without, excluding your phone.
Dyson Airwrap. Yep. It makes my life so easy. Yeah.
Mine is so lame. Coffee. I'm like, yeah, I know. It's terrible.
My tennis rackets.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's good.
Where do you play?
Flushing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So hard to find.
I know it's going to be like asking you to choose your favorite kid, but favorite product that you sell or favorite scent?
Ace fanny pack. All day, every day. you know.
I know.
The good shears as a Korean.
I
you
love
need
them.
kitchen
I've gifted them to so
scissors.
many
Oh.
people. They're so good. Really fantastic.
Right now, it's this set we just released called Chang, which actually has like Xinjiang, and it's basically a form of, it's an aged kanjang inside the perfume. And so we've been getting a lot of like weird comments and hate for it. They're like, why would I put that on my skin? So screw you guys. Just try it.
What is one banchan you can't live without?
Kimchi.
Oh, mine is oigimchi. I love it.
Agree.
Kimchi. And favorite brand that's not yours or your co-panelists?
We were actually admiring. I bet we had the same one.
Yeah, the same one.
We had the
Yeah.
same one. Kin. So we happen to both be rocking their stuff, but you can make. Mine is my Korean name Hedy, so it's nice having that for me.
Yeah, mine is Shin, which is my maiden name. Yeah.
Oh crap! I don't have one. I want one of those too.
That's okay.
And Korean founded.
Yeah, Jenny and wonderful.
Great. Is there a life hack that you have that you want to share with all of us here?
Dyson Airwrap.
Yeah.
Save so much time.
Not sponsored.
It's not a life. I mean, it's just. I guess it's mine. I wear the same thing every day. I have like 5 of everything, and it's so stupid because I did it out of like my wife. Prior to ELOREA, she was a photographer, and we were shooting with the model, this art director, and her, and I came out in all black, and all 3 of them were like, "You look really good today." So that moment, I went back downstairs and bought 5 of each of those things. It's like I am now optimized for life. That's how it happened.
Mine, I use the Notes app all the. I mean, that's just like. You guys, I already forgot a question in like the 1 second you asked it to me, so writing everything down in Notes, yeah.
Notes is great. Taylor Swift uses Notes.
Thanks for
her
the
songs,
comparison.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, Eunice, Wonny, for joining us tonight and sharing your journeys. Thank you to everyone who joined us here as well and for your thoughtful questions and spending your evening with us. We hope you leave feeling very inspired and to make a positive impact in your communities. Our founders have really graciously also offered a promo code for each of their brands. So look out for a thank you email from us so you can access that and start shopping. It'll last for about 2 weeks, I believe. So keep your eye out. And please join us for some refreshments and come find members of KACF and Korea Society to learn more about both of our missions. Not to put everyone on the spot, but anyone involved with KACF and the Korea Society, please raise your hands so we all know who to find. Thank you. And thank you, everyone. And thank you.